Republicans are inching closer to a narrow House majority, while control of the Senate hinges on some tight races. Investors are keeping their eyes on this close election, as control of Congress is likely to impact the markets. The midterm election defied expectations of sweeping conservative victories, which were driven by frustration over inflation and President Joe Biden's leadership. In the House, Republicans are less than a dozen seats away from the 218 needed to take control. Considering how tight these elections are, how would a divided U.S. government affect the markets and, of course, investors? Well, joining us now to give us his take on this is Brendan Caldwell, director of Caldwell Securities Ltd. Brendan, welcome back to Forum Daily.
Always great to be here, Nima.
Now, we know you actually just returned from the Big Apple, New York City. What was the overall sentiment there prior to Tuesday's elections?
Well, it was extremely busy. It's just New York really is back. It's been some time since I'd been there, since before COVID. But if the streets were as quiet during COVID as they were here in Toronto, they are 10 times busier than they are in Toronto. It is packed. It is bustling. So New York is back.
Sounds like the economy is finally starting to come back. Now, how would the results of the U.S. midterms impact the markets, Brendan?
Well, it's a strange thing. This was a very unexpected reaction or unexpected election result. And the reaction of the market has been muted. At best, it doesn't seem to care. Now, it's not surprising. Stock markets, markets in general, care less about politics than one might think. It is a bit of a repudiation of politicians' general sense of self-importance. In short, they don't matter as much as they think they do. And the markets don't generally like to be surprised. And this was a surprising reaction, and the market didn't seem to care that much.
Now, that's really interesting to learn. Now, if we're looking at the polling, it seems we're getting closer and closer to a divided government in the U.S. So is that better or worse for the U.S. economy, Brendan?
Probably better. Canada and the Westminster system of government is designed to have someone in charge and for things getting done, and the British sense of fair play to rule over all happens. So even when you have a majority government and the prime minister has considerably more control over what happens than the president of the United States ever does on a day-to-day basis, the Westminster system, the Canadian British system, was designed to have someone in charge. The American system is far more designed to have this constructive chaos, to have nobody really in charge, because I think from the outset, the founding fathers had an innate distrust of government, and so would rather it do little and less. Notwithstanding, it is a funny thing about the American system. We in Canada are never looking for the next prime minister to lead us out of the wilderness, whereas they always seem to be searching for the next Lincoln or the next Washington in the United States, and are always disappointed when he never quite turns up.
All right, Brendan, now, if we bring this back to the impacts on Canada, how do you, or what kind of impact do the U.S. Congress results even have on the Canadian economy in particular?
That's a tough one, Nima, because really, where it's most important is for our prime minister and their president to be on good working terms. Because different than in Canada, where the members of parliament are sort of responsible to their constituents, but not really. Their ability to get elected or re-elected depends far more on the strength of the party and the leader than it does on the loyalty of their constituents. We don't have this concept of primaries. If you are going to be an MP, it's because a federal candidate, it's because the prime minister says you will. Whereas in the U.S., the Congress, the senators the congressmen in particular, representatives in Congress are far more beholden to their constituents. So, long-winded way of saying they don't care what happens in Canada. They don't care about Canada at all. We're having a strong relationship with the president, like, say, Reagan and Mulroney had, like Clinton and Chrétien had. That has done much better for Canada. So, to our prime minister, I would say having a strong relationship with the president, whether you like him or not, is part of your job. You need to do this so that your country can benefit, because the president, while he has no direct power, has a tremendous amount of moral sway. In a divided House, like the one we're seeing or likely to see right now, having the moral sway will be much more useful than trying to get anything done directly with the Senate or with the Congress or with the House.
All right, Brendan, we are out of time, but thank you again for joining us today on Forum Daily.